In this video, we're going to take a look at floating point numbers in Ruby, a little bit more than we did in prior videos. So let's establish a floating point number here. Make sure I get enough zeros there. Okay, and let's get the class of that. It's a float, and let's go up here in RI and take a look at float, see what's in there. We're used double precision floating point, so that represents some pretty good sized numbers. You can see the instance methods for it are pretty similar to what we get with the fixed num integer class. The one area that I really wanted to caution you with is the comparators. Now in integers, it's really easy. A number is either one integer or the next. It's a 1 or it's a 2 and so on. That's not the case with floating point. There's things that are being stored internally that you might not necessarily even see looking at this right here. They might look the same to your eyes, but internally how it's being stored, you're not being showed the full representation of it, and that has to do with internally in binary how it's being stored in memory. So let me give you an example here. So we'll say x equals I divided by 0.003, and that should give us a big either repeating or irrational type number that just goes on and on and on. It does. It gives us that 0.6 that just repeats. So now if we say y equals x times 0.003, that's the same number that comes out. So at this point, y is this, and I looks the same, right? Well, let's compare them and see. And we come back with false. Let's see if y is less than. No, how about is it greater than? Yep, so there must be something internally going on where y is slightly greater than I. So I really want to caution you in using floating point that if you want exactness, it's not with floating point. And don't fall into the trap of using floating point to represent financial type transactions. This is where you can lose, hey, maybe a little bit of a 0.00001 cent here and there isn't going to make a big difference, but eventually that's going to add up and then it's going to be big money. So it's better to represent those with like the big decimal class that we'll cover in another video, and that allows you for a lot more accuracy with those big numbers, and there's just better ways to deal with this. Floating point should be used more for things like games, where you're representing 3D type things flying around on the screen and your absolute accuracy of it isn't critically important. So that's a little bit about floating point numbers.